In November 1966, over 100 people in Point Pleasant, West Virginia reported something in the dark. A figure, tall, winged, eyes like burning red coals. They called it the Mothman. For 13 months it kept appearing. And then on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed into the Ohio River. 46 people died in under a minute. The Mothman was never seen again. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but here's what I want you to notice. The Mothman is one of dozens of creatures that humans have been reporting across every continent, in every era, from cultures that never spoke to each other. And that's the part nobody actually talks about. Not whether these creatures exist, but why every civilization on Earth independently invented one. Because once you see that pattern, you won't look at any of these the same way again. 7 cryptids, every corner of the planet, one question underneath all of them. Let's find it. The first sighting of the Mothman, November 12, 1966. 2 couples driving near an abandoned TNT plant, a former World War II munitions site, when something massive rose from the darkness. Humanoid, 7 feet tall, wingspan between 10 and 15 feet. It kept pace with their car at 100 miles an hour. Within weeks, the sightings multiplied. Factory workers, police officers, a newspaper photographer, 103 separate reports, all describing the same pair of glowing red eyes. But the Silver Bridge had been quietly rusting for years. Engineers later found a single corroded link in the chain eye suspension. It was a structural disaster waiting to happen. The Mothman didn't cause it. So you have 2 possibilities. Either the Mothman is a real creature that somehow sensed oncoming catastrophe, a phenomenon actually documented in animals before earthquakes and floods. Or Point Pleasant was a community already living under the strain of a Cold War munitions site, an aging bridge, an economic decline, and they were primed to see something in the dark. Here's the question I want you to sit with for this whole video. What if both things can be true? Now, the Mothman wasn't the only cryptid to appear somewhere. Something was already very wrong. But the next one has a problem even harder to explain. 100 years of sightings and not a single body. 68 million acres of dense old-growth forest, and since 1958, thousands of reported encounters with something large, upright, and not quite human. The Patterson-Gimlin film, October 1967, 16 seconds. A massive bipedal figure walking through Bluff Creek, California. It glances back at the camera once, and that glance has never been satisfactorily explained. Hollywood special effects studios in the 1960s said they couldn't replicate the fluid movement. It has never been definitively debunked. But if Bigfoot is a real breeding population of large primates, it needs numbers to survive. The minimum viable population for a species this size sits somewhere between 300 and 500 individuals. That is a lot of Bigfoot. So across a century of modern wilderness activity, trail cameras, hunters, and hikers, you would expect at least one body, one skeleton, one confirmed natural death. There are 0. That absence is the most interesting data point in this whole story, because it means one of 3 things. Bigfoot doesn't exist and every sighting is misidentification or hoax. Bigfoot exists and disposes of its dead, a behavior documented in elephants and some great apes. Or the uncomfortable third option, the Patterson-Gimlin footage captured something real, and 60 years of embellishment and fabrication have been layered on top of a single genuine encounter until nobody can see the original signal anymore. But unlike Bigfoot, the next cryptid on this list didn't emerge from centuries of folklore. It was born in 1995, and it might be the most revealing creature on this entire list. August 1995, Canovanas, Puerto Rico. 8 sheep found dead, completely drained of blood. 3 clean puncture wounds in each. No other marks, no tracks, no explanation. A local woman named Madeline Tolentino reports seeing the creature responsible. 4 feet tall, gray skin, large oval eyes, spines running down its back. She describes it with startling, specific detail. The reports detonate across Latin America. The Chupacabra, literally goat sucker, becomes an overnight legend. But researchers later found something strange. Tolentino's description matched almost exactly a creature from the science fiction film Species, which had been playing in Puerto Rican cinemas that same month. So some researchers argue the Chupacabra was never spotted. It was assembled. From a movie monster, a genuine livestock mystery, and mass hysteria amplified by television. Later DNA testing on Chupacabra corpses found across Texas, mange-infected coyotes. Every single one. The Chupacabra might be the only cryptid with a confirmed birthday, 1995, and it spread not through wilderness, but through news cycles. Because in the television era, a cryptid doesn't need tracks, it just needs airtime. But the Kraken didn't need a news cycle. It had something better. 400 years of documentation. And then, in 2004, science gave it the most unlikely vindication in cryptid history. Ancient Norse sailors described it as an island that could drag ships down. So massive that men would mistake it for land, anchor on its back, and be pulled under as it dove. The Bishop of Bergen documented it formally in 1752, 1.5 miles across, arms that could crush a naval frigate. Scientists laughed. But in 2004, Japanese marine biologists captured the first ever live footage of a giant squid in its natural habitat, Architeuthis ducks. Confirmed specimens up to 43 feet long. Suction cup scars matching giant squid have been found on sperm whale skin, evidence of battles happening in total darkness, thousands of feet below the surface. So the Kraken wasn't invented. It was exaggerated, but from something real. Ancient sailors were encountering giant squid. They did the only reasonable thing. They described what they saw with the language they had. And here's what that means for every other cryptid on this list. The ocean is 65% unexplored. We've mapped the surface of Mars in more detail than the floor of the Pacific. When the Kraken turned out to be real, undersized but real, it changed the burden of proof. The question stopped being, does this creature exist? And became, what did they actually see? But of all the cryptids on this list, one of them was taken seriously enough that governments spent actual money trying to find it. Not just one government, several. 1953, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay summit Everest. On the way up, Hillary finds a trail of massive, unidentified footprints in the snow. He keeps climbing, but he doesn't forget. In 1960, Hillary leads a dedicated Yeti expedition into the Himalayas. He returns with footprints, a supposed Yeti scalp from a monastery, and more questions than answers. The scalp was later identified as a Siro, a Himalayan mountain goat. But here's the detail that stops me cold. Nepal issued official government Yeti hunting permits in 1959, $5,000 each, with specific legal terms. You could capture the Yeti, but not harm it. If you killed one, you faced criminal prosecution. Nepal's government, a functioning modern state, built legal infrastructure around a creature with no confirmed existence. But what does that actually tell us? It tells us that in 1959, with Everest freshly climbed and the Himalayas becoming a Cold War prestige target, the Yeti served a purpose. It made the mountains matter more. So the Yeti wasn't just folklore, it was geopolitically useful folklore, maintained by a government that understood the economic and cultural value of mystery. DNA analysis of collected Yeti hair samples, bears mostly, Tibetan brown bears walking upright on 2 legs. But one sample from a 2017 Oxford study matched a bear subspecies believed extinct for over 100 years. The Himalayas are still producing surprises, and that, quietly, is the point. But no cryptid has pulled more scientific expeditions, more government funding, or more genuine biological hope than the one hiding in the center of the Congo Basin, because this one could rewrite everything. The Congo Basin, second largest rainforest on Earth, larger than Western Europe, mapped carefully at its edges, almost completely unexplored at its center. And from the pygmy peoples of the region, stories going back centuries of something in the rivers. Long neck, small head, 4 legs, a tail that could capsize a canoe. MOKELE-MBEMBE, roughly, one who stops the flow of rivers. In 1981, a funded scientific expedition entered the Likwala swamp system, one of the most remote places on the planet, with one goal: find a living sauropod dinosaur. They didn't find one, but they found something genuinely hard to dismiss. When shown illustrated field guides of known African animals, the local pygmy people consistently pointed to the picture of a sauropod, an animal type they had theoretically no knowledge of when asked what MOKELE-MBEMBE looked like. No prompting, no coaching, just the picture. Expeditions from the Smithsonian, from Japanese universities, from independent researchers followed through the 1980s and 1990s. All returned with the same thing: compelling testimony, a few unexplained sounds recorded on tape, and no physical evidence. So either MOKELE-MBEMBE is a living dinosaur, which would require rewriting 66 million years of evolutionary understanding, or the Congo Basin contains an unknown large animal that local people have been accurately describing for centuries, and science simply hasn't reached yet. The Congo Basin is currently estimated to contain 10,000 undiscovered species. That's not a dramatic exaggeration. That's the actual scientific consensus. Whatever is in there, we haven't finished counting. But the last cryptid on this list might be the most important one, because it comes from the oldest living culture on Earth, and what it's describing might not be mythology at all. 65,000 years. That's how long Aboriginal Australian oral tradition has been unbroken, the oldest continuous culture in human history. And in that tradition, going back as far as any record exists, the Bunyip, a creature of the billabongs and river swamps. It bellows at night, it has tusks, flippers, sometimes a horse's tail. The description varies by region, which makes sense, because Australia is an entire continent, and different peoples lived beside different water systems. But one thing stays consistent across all of them. The Bunyip lives in the water, and it is not safe. In 1847, a strange skull was unearthed at Phillip Creek. Scientists couldn't identify it. For a brief, genuinely exciting moment, it was tentatively called a Bunyip skull. Then it was identified as a deformed horse cranium, and the excitement dissolved. But consider this. Australian megafauna went extinct between 40 and 20,000 years ago. The Diprotodon, a wombat the size of a rhinoceros. Megalania, a monitor lizard 8 meters long. Thylacoleo, a marsupial lion with retractable claws. These animals were real. They walked beside early humans, and Aboriginal oral tradition is 65,000 years old. So this has been proposed seriously by Australian paleontologists, not fringe researchers. The Bunyip may be a cultural memory, a creature description preserved through oral tradition across thousands of generations, maintaining the outline of something that lived beside humans and then disappeared. If that's true, the Bunyip isn't mythology, it's paleontology passed down through story. Okay, stop. Let me ask you something. The Mothman appeared in a community already stretched thin by economic stress and a crumbling bridge. The Chupacabra was born during economic instability and social tension in mid-90s Puerto Rico. MOKELE-MBEMBE became a Western obsession during the colonial era, when the Congo was being opened up and its contents were considered available for scientific claiming. The Bunyip emerged from a culture that watched massive animals vanish from the landscape around them. Notice anything? Cryptids don't appear randomly. They cluster around edges. The edge of knowledge, the edge of safety, the edge of whatever a society currently understands about the world. Every cryptid is a cultural pressure gauge. When a society is afraid of the dark, of economic collapse, of the unknown at the boundary of their map, the cryptid appears. It gives the fear a shape, a name, a set of eyes glowing in the dark, and suddenly the formless terror has a body, and bodies, at least theoretically, can be found, tracked, understood. The Kraken turned out to be real, smaller, but real. The Yeti produced a bear species science thought was gone. The Bunyip might be 65,000 years of accurate zoological memory. The line between cryptid and undiscovered species has always been thinner than scientists are comfortable admitting. But here's the thing I keep landing on. We don't stop creating cryptids in the 21st century. The Chupacabra was 1995. There are forums right now, tonight, reporting new creatures in new places, new shapes in the dark. We are the most documented, most surveilled, most camera-saturated civilization in history. Every pocket holds a lens. Every forest has a trail camera. And we still keep seeing things we can't explain. Maybe that tells us something. Not about the creatures, about us, about what we're afraid of right now, about what we need to believe is out there, so that whatever's frightening us has something to hide behind. The creatures change. The darkness we're looking into doesn't. So which one actually got you? The one I think most people completely underestimate is the Bunyip, because the idea that oral tradition could preserve an accurate physical description of an extinct animal across 65,000 years isn't fringe science. It's a hypothesis being taken seriously by Australian paleontologists right now, if you want to go deeper. The stranger documented Mothman cases that never made the news. The full history of MOKELE-MBEMBE expeditions and what the Likuala swamp has actually given science, or the cryptids that turned out to be real. All of that is coming. Drop the one you want covered next in the comments.